Okay, so because I would like to start by telling you a story about these two women. The one over here, this one, she's at that time the Chilean president, and she's just become the president. The year is 2007, and she goes to visit another president, who is the other woman, who is the Finnish president. So these two heads of states are in Finland. One is a new president, the Chilean. The other one is a president who has been in the office for many years at that time. So when heads of states get together, they need to go out to see where there are good photo opportunities, and that's always with children. Politicians and children always makes a very good photo opportunity. So they go into a kindergarten, tells a little about how it is to be a politician, how it is to be a president, and then they ask all the children, what do you want to be when you grow up? And there's one who wants to be a nurse, and one who wants to be a doctor, a firefighter, an engineer, a lawyer, and nobody wants to be the president. So the president of Finland is asking a little boy, what do you want to be? I said, I want to be a policeman. And she was like, why don't you want to be the president of Finland? And he says to her, but madame, in Finland, boys cannot be presidents. And why does he say that? He says that exactly because he has only known one president, and that was a woman. So role models actually do matter. Next slide, please. And I have actually here put a number of the female role models of female leaders from all around the world. I will not introduce them. I think they speak very much for themselves by their presence there. But to say that even if we do have some female role models in the world, we are highly unrepresented in the national parliaments around the world. 19% of women globally have a seat in parliament, so there is definitely room for improvement globally. Next slide, please. But if you go back to my country, Denmark, we've had actually the right to vote and the right to be active in politics since 2015 on national level. Not 2015, 1905. 5th of June, Constitution Day. 100 years ago, this year, a procession of women over here went to the castle where the king at that time accepted them, and they gave this statement here, in which, when you read it through, it would say they did not say thank you to the king, because they didn't think that they should say thank you, because they meant that as human beings, they were equal citizens, and they had equal rights. So what they actually said, that they expressed their delight, but they did not say thank you because they didn't think that they had to say thank you. So this year, a lot of the women of Denmark in Copenhagen, we actually did the same. We went to the parliament this time, and you can see that's the other picture over there. The dresses are more or less the same, at least the colors are. The skirts are a little shorter. It took, you could say, 100 years, and then you have a shorter skirt. But to mark that it's been 100 years since women were actually allowed to vote in parliament in Denmark. For the local elections, it were a little before that. So if you go next slide, please. So these two women, unfortunately, they're not liberals, but the first one over here, that's Nina Bang, and she was a social democrat and the first elected female minister in the world, actually. She was a minister of education in Denmark, and she sat for 2 years. So that was a world record, you could say, we had in Denmark. We did not have the first female head of state, because it actually took us almost 100 years to get one, and we got one in 11, and that's the lady over there, Helle Thorning-Schmidt, and she was also a social democrat. We're still to see the first social liberal head of state in Denmark. I'm sure it's going to come one day. And next slide, please. So you can say, while we actually got the right to vote quite early, it took us a while. It took us about 100 years, actually, to reach to where we are now, where you have somehow a very good representation in parliament. And that is a little different from the new democracies, you can say, because they are not prepared to wait for that long. And it's quite striking that you actually have on the list of the 4 highest number in parliaments in the world where women have the highest representation. It's not the Nordic countries. The first one is Rwanda, Bolivia, Cuba, and the Seychelles. And then only after that, Sweden. Denmark is number 17, and we just heard Russia is 100. So we're also not up there with the top 5 we would very much like to be. Please, next slide. So here I put down how you can actually see after we get the right to vote. It's slow. I mean, we get 3% in the first election. We the women, get 3% the first election we had. That was quite a disappointment because there wasn't this idea that now we finally got the right to vote. Now we're going to, go through the glass ceiling. We didn't at that time. And then continuously over the next 100 years, we have been crawling up. And you can see the increases, and that very much relates to, I think, what you said, Olga, in the beginning. You can actually see here where we have removed some of the social economic barriers to enter into politics. That's exactly education, family laws, maternity rights, paternity rights also. When that happens, when that gets together, you can actually increase the number of women who enter into politics and who are elected. So that's some of the prerequisites, you can say, in order to get that percentage up. There's another one, I think, and I don't know how that translates into the Jabloko discourse, but the institutional one, which is the one saying the parties are actually responsible for putting candidates onto the ballot. Now, if that's still a barrier, there's no wonder why women are not in politics. So that's also something we as parties have to deal with and be honest with. Speak the truth, as we heard this morning, also on this issue. And then what Olga also mentioned, the cultural barriers. Are we prepared to accept that politics is also something a woman can do? Can she actually resume office? Can she keep her head straight and not think about the children and the food and the husband and the clothes? And if you have overcome all these barriers, there's actually a good chance that you can succeed. Next slide, please. And I think what this one shows, that is, the one is the same as we had before, where you can see the number of women active and elected to the parliament. And now you have a very interesting situation, I think, because it's actually easier for a woman in Denmark, if you are on the ballot, to be elected than it is for a man, which is a new thing. And I think that has to do very much with the barriers that we have put down. It's also so that the majority of students in universities, in most educations, are now women. So it's only, and that leaves us the problem, because what to do with the men now, right? So that's also, when we speak about gender, we need to actually to balance that. And one of the new issues that we are facing in Denmark, actually on this gender equality, is that it's actually a problem now in the kindergartens, that it's only women still who take care of the children. And if we really want to start early and start to introduce gender equality at a very early state, all the children there needs to be taken care of by men and by women. Same goes with nurses. Why should a nurse always be a woman? It can be a man as well. So these are some of the stereotypes that we're fighting with internally, because we have the whole framework, legislative framework. We have that secured. We are secured by that. We are protected by law. But there are still some social norms and some values that we are still fighting. Next slide, please. And then just 2 words. This is a new group after the elections, and you can see there are more women there than men. This is a Social Liberal Party. Just not to brag that we're better than anyone else, but it is actually historically so that we have in the Social Liberal Party been really good at selecting women, promoting women, because we have looked at what is the capacity of the person more than what is the gender of the person. Last slide. But there's still some way to go, because even after 100 years of the right to vote, we only landed at 37% of females elected to the parliament this year. So you can say even if we are on the move, we're not there yet. And I don't think this is going to, we have had this discussion in Denmark on what to do to reach that. Should we have quotas for women in boards, for instance? This has been an internal discussion we've had in the party. We have to be honest about these things. I don't think that that's going to help. What will help is to have an enabling framework, get better jurisdictions for and better laws to protect the women and the men. If a man and a woman gets a child, it is fairly okay that they should actually share the maternity-paternity leave. That's one of the battles that we have now in Denmark, because it's still so that women take most of the leave when having a child, and that is actually putting up a barrier for her career to enforce her future or her career. So that are some of the things that we are facing. They are not exactly the same as you're facing in Russia, but it is along the same that we need to break down some stereotypes, and so that is what we're trying to do. But as we said up here, we are still not there yet. Thank you very much for the attention.